What is going on, everyone? Welcome to week 4 of Look Who's Chalking. I got news for you. Justin Herbert defied Gary's odds. He went over 30 points. That's my guy. If you know me, I'm not a fan of any NFL team, and it's rare that I'm a fan of specific players. But I think I'm a fan of Herbert, and Gary, hopefully, he made a fan of you week 3. I'm not sure if he was optimal, but he was pretty goddamn good. And he came through for those who played him. And I think hopefully he's on your good side again.
He sure was optimal. And no, I've always loved Herbert too. That's what's been so frustrating is I haven't blamed him necessarily for the lack of ceiling. It's been all the Chargers' incompetence around him. So glad to see him finally get over that 30-point hump. And in general, what I was most fascinated by the Charger stuff with the perfect lineup and just what was optimal. I mean, for a while it was the double, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Justin Herbert that were optimal. I think Mike Williams ended up getting booted in the 4 o'clock, but you didn't need a Vikings bringback. And like something that's been a big talk of the industry over the last 2 weeks is are bringbacks overrated in general? I'm not ready to get into that conversation here, but there have been plenty of times where you've seen these optimal lineups or even winning lineups, I should say. Like Drew Dinkmeyer won a huge tournament, had a bring back, probably didn't even necessarily need a bring back. So it's interesting to dive into. And we have another game that looks just like that one, which that one was a 54-point over-under with a 1.5-point spread or whatever. And we have a 53.5 with a 1.5-point spread this week. So certainly something to talk about.
We'll visit that game in just a second, but since we're starting opening up on the Chargers, and the name of this show is Look Who's Chalking, I saw a play, unless I was mistaken, which is going to be Chalkfest 2023. It's so chalky, I might call it Chalkfest 2024 because so many people are going to play it. It's going to lead straight into next year. And now that Mike Williams is gone, yeah, this might just be the chalk play for the rest of the year. The second wide receiver on the Chargers, unless I'm mistaken, did I see Palmer coming in around the 4,000 mark? Was was I seeing a different Palmer? Was I seeing Carson Palmer's younger brother or something like that?
No, and I don't know what happened because I know we don't talk about FanDuel here, but it used to be where FanDuel's pricing was so inefficient and they would never update things. And, their position stuff was still out of whack, but their pricing was always crazy. And this year, or even getting back to last year, they've been way quicker to be updating pricing where DraftKings just drags their feet and drags their feet. And for some reason, Josh Palmer's 4K, he's like 6,100 on FanDuel. That's probably what he should be with the increased roll. So yeah, he's going to be super chalky. There's no doubt about
You,
it.
you
It's
ever
kind of
think? You
impossible
ever
to avoid.
think? I always. I just heard a saying earlier tonight. Many times, something that's attributed to malice is really just stupidity. Like, oh, I bet you they intentionally did something like that. Imagine some guy was just texting the girl at Starbucks and he just missed like Josh Palmer and a couple other players. Just something trivial. This guy doesn't care. He's not even playing in the millionaire. He's just inputting prices. And maybe he just hit the right. He hit a 4 instead of a 6 or something like that. You ever think there's a chance? I would imagine it gets combed over.
Yeah, I would think so. But you know what? Maybe the price makers are so out of touch there that they're just like, oh, Josh Palmer's still the wide receiver 3-4 there. Don't even think about the Mike Williams of it all, and just okay, 4K. That's what he would be this week because that's pretty what he would. It's what he would be anyway, right? At 3,800 or something like that. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I mean, whatever Quentin
Yeah.
Johnston is probably what he would be, right? So Quentin Johnston is uh 3,700. So that's what Josh Palmer would have been. So I don't understand it either at all.
Well, I
I mean, a
mean,
lot of underpriced DraftKings receivers. So like Tank Dell is still
Austin
only
Eckler
4,500 or whatever.
Austin Eckler's practicing this week, and to me, that makes a huge difference because Josh Kelly, he's an afterthought in the passing game. And when you're looking to make stacks with Herbert, whether it's a single, double, whatever the hell you want to do, it's nice knowing that he's never throwing to the running back, and you can accumulate stats with those skill position players or the receivers out there. So if Eckler doesn't play, I mean, how is this not a game that you can look at with how frequently they throw and who they're going to be going up against in week 4? This has to be one of the meat and potatoes games in terms of what people are looking at. We're going to go to the head honcho. We're going to go to the boss. We're going to go to Mike Tyson at the end of Punch Out right after this. But since we opened up talking about Herbert, I just think it's natural to wonder if that's going to continue right into the following week.
Yeah, to me, this is very clearly the second best game environment of the week if Jimmy Garoppolo plays on the other side. If we're getting Brian Hoyer on the other side of this game, I don't know what the heck this game looks like because that's a 38-year-old guy that can't move the ball. Like you could throw further than Brian Hoyer at this point. So I want to love Devontae Adams. I want to keep taking shots on Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
I want to love Jacoby
you
Myers.
chuckle. People chuckled about Alexander Madison, and he didn't even play well last week, and he still almost racked up 100 yards, missed a couple goal line carries.
Dude,
Josh
should have been
Jacobs got a
such a
bunch
big
of work.
for
Josh Jacobs
Madison.
got a bunch of
Yeah.
work in that last game. And yeah, you're going to say, oh, another kind of, I think he snuck to like 80 yards. And while that's not great going up against Pittsburgh, and now you're coming home against a team who you can always kind of run against, or I know they were home against Pittsburgh, but I don't know. I think Jacobs, a few weeks into this season,
I'm going to keep
this could be a good play, and he's expensive. So you pay up to get the lower ownership. I think that's a potential.
Yeah, I love Josh Jacobs. The Raiders have one of the most concentrated offenses in the entire league. It's like 95% of all offensive touches go to three guys. I mean, that doesn't happen. So like I love all three of those guys, but again, I need Jimmy Garoppolo to play there. I don't trust Brian Hoyer to lead a productive fantasy offense. And in that same vein, we know the Chargers love to run the ball if they can. So if they're up with a big lead, yeah, I don't think we're getting back to back 30-point Justin Herbert performances. So we need a little bit of pushing, at least on the other end. But I do love the Chargers, all of them. You know, my only thing, Eckler, I think it's very clear at this point. When Eckler does not play, Keenan Allen is an absolute smash, like best in the world smash. Like you look at his career stuff with that Eckler, absurd numbers, and he just did it once again last week, and he threw for one. I mean, this is absurd. Completely ready to eat crow on my Keenan Allen preseason takes over that I like Mike Williams more. That Keenan Allen was getting old and dust because, like, man, the guy is just balling out. And so I'm interested in him, but definitely more if Eckler doesn't play again because I think that's the only way you're getting that back to back to back ceiling game out of Keenan.
Okay, that makes sense. Now we're going to go to this big game, but I do want to mention overall, we're not at those buys yet, and we still have a ton of teams on this slate. And this week, for me personally, just looking at it, there are so many if you're a Charlie Bucket out there, this is a tough week for you because there are so many people that you could see. I know you told me in the past, I look at every player and I think, can this person be in the perfect lineup? Well, if I was doing that, this is one of the weeks I'm seeing endless amount of people, whether it's due to matchup. I'm talking about something as dinky as that Chicago Denver matchup. Don't tell me there's not a lot of ton of
Sneaky, man.
opportunity to snake players in that
Sneaky.
game. So how can you look at that and yeah, you can hope they both suck and you can hope that both coaches just want to try to eke out a win, but that could also be a, you know what? Throw caution to the wind. We're 0-3. Could be there are so many different matchups on this slate that man, I hope you got a lot of 150s in there, you and the rest of your cronies, because I feel like you might need them on this particular weekend. We'll look at some of those in a
Yeah.
sec, but let's talk about the big guy. Let's talk
No,
about the big. Go ahead.
no, I just want to touch on the slate kind of macro view as you were just hitting on. Like I agree with you. I think the slate is a tough beast to navigate because it's not just that we have 12 games. You can make a ceiling case for a lot of players in a lot of environments. But I think value is less on DraftKings than we've had. There's not as many clear 3K plays, tight end, not as many strong darts necessarily. So I do think it's harder to construct a more balanced lineup with ceiling. Because there we've had these. I mentioned DraftKings still has a bunch of underpriced receivers, and I think they do, but even those guys are in the mid 4K to high 4K range. We're not talking like 3.5. So there are some reasonable punts in that range. Quentin Johnson being one of them if you want to get contrarian on that Chargers team. But yeah, I think this is a tough slate for sure. And no, if you notice, if you're watching on YouTube, I have a weird background. That's because I'm in Napa, California right now for a wedding this weekend. A freaking another wedding during football season. I know it's shoot me. But luckily for me, it looks like I might avoid some landmines as far as I can't play full MME set this weekend. So listen, I'll get my Charlie Bucket lineups in there too, my three maxes, my single entries. But I honestly, I got to spend a lot of time on Saturday before this wedding, like figuring out what those lineups look like because hand building three lineups this week, as you said, it's a tall task. And I know what you're about to get into. I think the one place you do have to start is, are you attacking the Bills Dolphins game or aren't you?
You know me, sometimes I could try to say, you know what, Gary, like the Bengals, Ravens, like, you know what? I can kind of stay off of this. I don't like Burrow in the beginning of seasons, divisional matchups. Some of those matchups have been defensive in the past. I don't know. That one could get ugly. I don't have anything I could say to you about this one. What ways does it not pop off? Because the way that the Dolphins are scoring, even if the Bills are up 2-3 touchdowns, they know how efficient that Miami offense is. I mean, they almost lost to them in the playoffs with a backup quarterback, and then they almost lost that Sunday Night Football, I believe, in the snow when I think Tua did play that game. They won on a penalty, like on the very end. I think Mostert went off in that game, and he just hasn't slowed down since. But they know how good those weapons are on Miami, and I would imagine Buffalo's really going to push in this one. I know we've seen a ton of work for Cook. I don't think this is all right. Slow it down. I thought after the Jets game, they're going to want to take it out of Allen's hand a little bit, just get on the winning track. This one, man, this one can be a track meet. And I don't care if that's what the chalk shows, the chalk says. You're talking about two teams kind of firing right now. And yeah, you got to get involved. I'll leave it to you to get sneaky in how to try to sneak some points out the side door that other people aren't going to be getting. Madison worked last week as far as a good play in that game, paying up for Herbert when more people were going to use Cousins. That was a good
Herbert
way.
was the one.
Hopefully you
That
have
was the way to do
sneaky
it last
ways in
week.
this one too.
So I wrote about that in my leverage column last week that Herbert, attacking Herbert stacks aggressively was the way to get different in that game, and I was right on that one. I'm going to take a look at ownership in a second here because, like, as I said, I've been on vacation. I haven't even really gotten a chance to look. But what was I going to get out here? Oh, the research I found with these games, these types of games, which is like 53.5, 54, and a tight spread. There's been like 22 examples over the last 3 seasons. There's been one that at least one player didn't appear in the optimal lineups, like 4% of all chances. So there's always, and sometimes it's been the defenses, maybe like twice. But it's like 17 or 18 out of 22 examples, there's been at least one skill position player from this type of game in an optimal lineup, even when it goes under, which it did last week. Technically, it was 52 over instead of 54, and we had two, right? So I think 90% of your lineups, 95 if you want to take a stand, should have a piece of this game, even if that means one of the defenses. I don't like the defenses as much in this game as I did theoretically in the Chargers Vikings, but yeah, I mean, think about this, right? It was the Bills' best performance of the season. The Dolphins scored the most points since 1966. I mean, if you say a team is going to score 50% of the points they scored last week, they're going to cut their score in half. You would think your team's going to have a terrible week, right? Most teams scores 24 points. All right, they're scoring 13 points this week or whatever, 12 points this week. The Dolphins score half the points they scored last week. They're still getting to 35 points. You take 35 points all day long. So it's like, I think that this game shoots out, or at the very least is heard from. Somebody's getting there. Now the pricing is probably pretty efficient on all of these guys now, because we've seen representation in winning or optimal lineups from Diggs, Gabe Davis at this point, all the Dolphins guys. They're getting Waddle back. Maybe that's a sneaky way. Let's take
I
a
was
quick look at
about to say,
ownership.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah,
I'm going to start
curious.
with my entry level way to get different. I got my first idea, like that guy in Goodwill Hunting who tries to act all smart at the bar because he learned one thing in a class. Waddle coming off of an injury. People are always more excited to play Tyreek Hill in the first place. He's going to be expensive. People are always a little worried paying up for a guy coming off of an injury. And then when you look at Tyreek Hill's games at Buffalo, for whatever freaking reason, he's never popped off in any of them. Like the last 4 contests, his only good game there was in like the empty stadium, like when it was just completely empty a couple of years back. Maybe it's just not a stadium that treats him very well. Maybe they defend him very well. Whatever it may be, maybe Waddle is a good way. Like if you're doing Allen stacks and assuming you still believe in the bringbacks, I think Waddle is a way that I'm going to try to kind of get a little bit different in that one. Is the
I
price
still believe in the
differential
bringbacks, by the
big on
way.
those two quarterbacks?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like both these. Well, Allen's getting a little. So Tua is 74 and Allen's 82. So you save $800 by going to Tua. Allen is projecting for like 10% on ETR right now. Tua is projecting for like 4. That's not right. It's going to be. They're both going to be a little bit higher than that, I think. But Yeah, I mean, you could do the opposite of what last week was, which was pay down to be contrarian here for a lower ceiling. But is it a lower ceiling? I mean, Tua has shown balled out. So, like last week, the reason Herbert was so good is because you were paying up to be contrarian for what I considered a higher ceiling. Projection sets may have said that they have the same ceiling. We knew that's not true at the end of the day. Kirk has been balling out, good for him, Kirk Cousins, but we knew Justin Herbert has a higher ceiling, right? So that was always the sharp side. Here, the ownership's actually less on this game overall on the early slate. We're getting a lot on Diggs and Tyreek, so the people are getting to the two top receivers. James Cook's breaking 10%. Josh Allen's breaking 10%. Kincaid's sitting around 9, which is a lot for a tight end. After that, maybe because they've priced Mostert up to 6,500 now. Two is up to 74. A-Chain or A-Chan is 57 after that big performance. Waddle is 76. No one's going to go there, so I do like that.
Well, there you go. You want to know? I mean, look, nobody wants to pay 76, hence why you have to pay 76. So that's a good way. We've given you many. If he works out, you don't have any excuse. Tyreek Hill never had a massive performance in Buffalo. There's going to be a ton of points in this game, highest on the slate. You want to get a quality player. We're not taking River Craycraft here. We're taking a great player. It's not even like Gabe Davis. I mean, Waddle is a bona fide stud, and this is a good chance to get him. I know he's been practicing all week. He almost played last week, was cleared. You should roll him out there with confidence if you want to get in that game.
Tua, Mostert, Waddle with a Diggs bring back. Like, that's something I like, right? Because so Diggs, he's got 16%, but I love his role so far this year. Like, any matchup, he's getting his 12 to 14 targets. It's been very consistent. So I'd rather, you're not paying for Tyreek, so you want to pay for one of those studs. You get the Mostert's not going to be as old as he should for how good his role has been. You know, I'm not worried about pairing my running backs with quarterbacks. Tua is less owned than Allen. So right there, Diggs is your only chalky piece in a full game stack of the best environment of the week. Now, we'd have to look at what the construction looks like. You're still paying 74, 76, 65, and whatever Diggs is, 81. So you're still paying a ton of salaries. You got to figure out some value, but you're not paying the 9+ for Tyreek and the 8.2 for Josh Allen and the 8.1 for Diggs. It's a little bit less pricey and it's contrarian. So that's kind of the type of stacks that I'll be looking to attack, I think.
Then after we look at those two games, are there any other games that stand out to you? Because I think so many of these damn games stand out, and I'm just wondering if it's me in my head thinking they all look good, or are you kind of feeling the same thing? Like, are people just going to forget about Christian McCaffrey at Arizona, or is he going to be played a bunch? Like that. I mean, a potential smash spot is kind of going to fly under the radar with how much can be focused on these other games, potentially, because McCaffrey now, he's at that point where he might just be played a ton every single week. But
pricing's tight, and they've now, all these guys, him, Tyreek, and Jefferson, they've gotten all these guys up to the mid 9Ks now. So it's hard. So we're only looking at like 13, 14% on CMC right now. I think hand builders and your toilet shit. Yeah, your toilet bowl.
Look, man. Those hand builders, toilet shit. I mean, look.
The toilet bowl builders on Sunday morning, I think, click Christian McCaffrey a lot. So I always tick like an extra 2, 3, 4% on days ownership. So even if you get up to 16, 17% on CMC, not that high for what the ceiling brings you. The game I want to talk about, and you were hinting at it, man, Bears Broncos, dude. Like, it is sneaky. It's ugly. But how many times throughout?
Gary, can you pull up the DraftKings tab? As much as I love weather.com or weather.com, NFLweather.com.
I got you.
And we really appreciated them and needed them last week with the hurricane making its way, because NFLweather.com, they had somebody manually inputting the updates on a minute-by-minute basis. But yeah, for sure. On this slate, I mean,
it's crept up, the over-under on this one. I think it started at like 44.5. It's up to 46. And how many times, I think I'm going to do research on this on a leverage article that I'm going to write tomorrow, because I think it's an interesting topic. How many times have we seen, particularly early in the season, but anywhere from like early to mid-season, two very bad teams, whether they're winless like these two teams are, or like a 2-7 versus 3-6 or whatever, that have just shot out of nowhere. We've seen it like 2 or 3 times a season for the last like 5 seasons. And I'm going to do the research. I'm going to find the actual numbers on it. But this has it written all over it. So go to that DraftKings, right? What you're going to see green everywhere, which means the opposing ranks are terrible, right? Everywhere. Against running backs,
Wow.
against receivers, against quarterbacks, right? You're going to see it everywhere because the Broncos just gave up 70 points. The Bears just gave up 41 points. These teams are completely reeling. Both defenses suck. And you know what I particularly like is we have ceilings in this game. Like, let's not forget, like, Justin Fields is terrible. I hate, and I said this in my first look show. I hate that I'm going to play a lot of him this week, but I got to play a lot of Justin Fields this week. You're getting him at 6,600. We know there's 40-point ceiling in there. He got more design runs last week. That's what we're looking for there. They're at home. Eberflus playing for his job. Denver's defense just showed how terrible it is. And he started the season at 7,700. That's what he should be based on what we saw last year. I don't think he's a good real life quarterback. I never did. We talked about this on the show last year, and I was so out on Fields because I was letting my real life, evaluation creep into my fantasy evaluation. Something I vowed never to do again after that, and I'm not going to do it because I still think he's a terrible real life quarterback. But I remember that he is a good fantasy quarterback when it all hits. So this game is the sneaky one to me. I'm going to attack it a lot. I think Russ is fine too, although the ceiling on Fields is obviously higher. And then you can get into the receivers for sure.
Can I make a suggestion for those of you who are thoroughly disgusted by Justin Fields, like to the point where I don't care. This I don't even see that coming. He's going to be an absolute disgrace. Well, I don't know if you watch Thursday Night Football, but a guy, he just looks like a slug out there. David Montgomery went out there and it took 33 carries or whatever, but he got to 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nobody likes him. Who cares? If you get that kind of use against a potential bad defense, and that's not even what the Packers was, but look what the Broncos defense gave up to those running backs last week. You think I'm excited about Khalil Herbert? Like, oh my God, play Khalil Herbert. He's an extremely cheap running back against the defense that Brian Robinson destroyed, and he's no speedster. And then both of those running backs from the Dolphins destroyed. I get it. Whatever you're feeling, I get it. I'm just saying, if they're looking to get a win and that offense isn't able to move the ball through the air, I can see them going to Herbert. They went to him a lot last year, and they haven't given up on him. All they essentially did is give Roschon Johnson more run, but really they've been trailing so much in these games, it would make sense. I really think if they have a lead or something like that, or they're close, you'll get more Khalil Herbert. Now, this is under the assumption Foreman will be inactive once again. Then I'll give you the green light. If he's active and they're rotating all three, then I'm off. I'm off that.
I agree with you. And I mentioned that value is tough to find. Value is tough to find on this slate. We've been talking about it. Here's a 4,700 running back. I think Roschon's fine also if you want to get into the shootout thing of this, but either of them. Herbert is very incorrectly the cheapest running back of those three. 4,700 is too cheap. I think he's still a talented back. That team in general has just been a mess. So yeah, I'm with you. How do you feel about your guy, your flag plant from last week, or your flag plant, your men's warehouse pick of the week from last week in Javonte?
I want to double and triple apologize. I'm the first one to fuck up. Gary came through big time with Cooper. All of our previous ones were good. I'm a little upset, and it doesn't matter. He did awful. But I do think a lot of that had to do with how much they were down, and it was too hard for him to kind of get going. Now, this is a guy who I think you're just going to see continue to get better every single week. He obviously has more of a ceiling than P. Ryan, and you've been seeing that in games that are close. They've really started to use him more. This is a game where he obviously can do extremely well. We saw what the KC running backs both did, or all three of them did last week, and we know Peyton utilizes these running backs in the passing game and on the ground. And we get it. The worst matchup ever. But it's a good spot for both of these running backs. But I get it. I get it if you're scared. But this is in any sport. Hockey, I don't know if baseball applies. I don't know if basketball applies. But my sports, I know if two bad teams play each other, I always take over. If the San Jose Sharks are playing the Columbus Blue Jackets, it's usually 6-5 because no one gives a shit. And this would be the NFL equivalent of that. And
Basketball's the same.
Plenty of points to go around.
Basketball's the exact same, by the way. When teams are terrible, it's because they don't play any defense, right? So you'll see like the same thing, like when the Rockets play the Thunder or something, it's like a 250 over under, and the people it just goes nuts for fantasy purposes. Yeah.
And then when they play a good team, it's like they psychologically want to show, like, we can be good one day. Like, if a really good team is coming into town, a bad team will really try to give it an effort. It's when two shit teams play, it's like, all right, everyone, you do what you need to do out there, and it ends up being these crazy games. There is a scenario where a team like the Broncos just wants to get their first win, and they actually play conservatively. There is a chance for that. But if that doesn't happen, and these teams just throw caution to the wind,
we can't sit here and the Bears might be that bad. Whereas you said, like the Broncos are 4-point favorite. I don't know what they were favored here. What are they favored? The Broncos are 3.5 point favorite. Like, there's a chance that they're and this is in Chicago. Like this is a team that's give up 70 points. So that's what Vegas thinks of the Bears. That they're 3.5 point home dogs to a team that just give up 70 points. So yes, I think that's a real possibility. But I don't think I think we're smart enough and have been doing this long enough to if we're talking about this game for this long, that you should be taking it seriously too. So yeah. Anyway, the receivers, Judy, Sutton, it seems pretty condensed there still. Mims worthy of a spot in your player pool, and eventually they're going to use him more. He's got like 8 of their top 10 longest plays of the season. All he does is connect on long balls or have a long return. I don't know what they're doing, not putting him out on the field more. He's a really good deep threat. But still seems like everything's pretty condensed around Judy or Sutton. Sutton was good last week, 8 for 91 and a touchdown, 11 targets. He seems to be developing that rapport with Russ while Judy's still getting his legs underneath him. So on the Bears side, it's DJ Moore or Kmet or bust for me. There.
I want to talk to you about the 100% running backs. And by 100% running backs, I mean the 2 running backs in a game who play the same amount of snaps as like prime Emmitt Smith. I'm talking about Indianapolis and LA. The 2 running backs who play 100% of the running back snaps, if not 97. Now, if you watch that primetime game, for whatever reason, the Rams got away from what was working for them those first couple of weeks. They just decided not to run the ball at all. But you take that down week to know that people saw that in primetime. Kyren Williams or Zach Moss. Now, Zach Moss might have to deal with a running quarterback, which might be a little different than if someone like Minshew plays. But Williams, I mean, this guy is getting passes. Like, just imagine primetime Todd Gurley with less talent than Todd Gurley, but he gets a
lot less talent. Yeah.
But a lot more passes because he is
the role is absurd.
Yes, 7 targets last week. Stafford missed him on a few. If you saw against the Niners, that's what you want him to look like, a little cockroach running. He's getting gold line touches, but he's got that you know how some have that cockroach look, like Ray Rice had it. He's got it, that fast, low cockroach look. And the way he's utilized in the passing game on those quick screens, and he does have speed. He can take things kind of deep. He's a pretty good player. Man, just by sheer virtue. Like, if you look at what David Montgomery did, now imagine he was faster and had the ability to break some longer ones. I imagine in indoors, just in that environment, man, he could be a real good play.
You call Kyren Williams the cockroach. I'll call him the Chalkroach this week because he's looking at like 26%. Most owned running back on the slate. So.
I didn't know. It just seemed I was thinking maybe he was one of those names that just like, all right, people are not gonna. And what about Moss?
Volume is king. Volume is king in fantasy football, right? So like, even though he's been incredibly inefficient on the ground, you mentioned how good. There you go. That's the name of the episode. Anyway, I wanted to tell you real quick. I caught your picks video for last whatever game that was, the Rams game last week. And you snuck out that Kyren Williams over receiving yards. You just snuck it out. You just snuck out the Puka Nacua over receiving yards too, and you got your Higbee one also. So I was happy with your 3-0. I was like, there's no way this guy's getting all 3 Rams receiving overs, so they all hit for you. You got that backdoor Kyren one, right? Was he 26.5? I think he had 27.
No. Well,
or something like that.
Kyren had that locked up by early third quarter. It was the Puka Nacua. On that last deep throw. And the thing is, I hated having to take it. It's like, my God, everyone and their mother is going to take this. I would have said no at like 75, but when it opened it and I made the video, it was like
68 and a half. Yeah, I saw. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that was
and
low. I agreed
and
it
he
was
hit
low.
that. And
Yeah.
I felt a little bit like a scumbag, but it was good.
No, it's
It
happy
was
for
good.
you. I like when you succeed and all your mouth breathers in the comments or whoever these people are that can't get your bets or whatever can complain. But I like it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then Shanahan, I swear to you, there are a few people out there that have a higher Shanahan record than me. Like on primetime Shanahan games, I'm telling you, I rake for people. I got to come in and be a coordinator when other teams play him. I know what he's running out there. But anyway,
no,
that's a
you
whole
did.
separate
You
thing.
did. You crushed.
If you want to check those videos, they're on the Odd Shopper channel. We'll have them up
And yeah,
for
just when
Sunday
you
as
started
well.
talking about Karen's pass catching chops, I was thinking about that video. I was remember watching that game. Moss, let's look at Moss. Yeah, so here's the thing: two great roles, right? Moss is the one who's actually been efficient. I'm shocked, and the Bills let this guy go for nothing. Been over 4 yards of carry. He's been like really productive with his runs. He's running hard, getting a couple of targets through the air. He's a cash game guy right now. So here's the thing: both these guys, Moss and Williams, especially at their 6K tag and volume, cash game players just gravitate to these types of players like instantly. Because anyone that you know is getting 20 carries and is like not 8K, like yeah, they're going to click on them. So what happens is when they're good cash game play, they project pretty well. When they project pretty well in their good cash game play, they end up getting in a lot of tournament lineups because people play variations of their cash lineups and just like tinker like two or three pieces to get some cheap pieces, but they're not tinkering those really high floor mid tier price players.
Sometimes
So
you
these
got to
guys end up
tinker in
getting
that
chalked
shit
up.
bubble.
You got to tinker in the twinkle and the dude. I'm jet lagged and fucking baby and
No, it's
whatever.
all good.
Who knows?
It's all good.
But so Kieran projecting as like the best player of the slate. Zach Moss, third highest projected running back. There's
Okay.
Miles Sanders actually in between them at 5,800. So basically, everyone's going to this tier, which is Kieran Williams, Miles Sanders, Zach Moss, Joe Mixon. Those guys are like 58 through 6,400. Madison also kind of sneaking
Hey,
in there.
curiosity, where did
5,800.
old Justin Jefferson go on this week? Did he fall through the cracks?
Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Yeah, he's kind of falling through the cracks, like 10% right now. Yeah, it's
Wow,
really hard to get
you
to
better
96.
hammer
Yeah.
him.
It's really hard to get to 9,600. But I agree. You should hammer Justin Jefferson if you can get him.
And that's the great analysis you get on this show. You got to hammer Justin Jefferson.
But honestly, this is how much easier it is to get to Devontae Adams at 8K and Keenan Allen at 7,900. Those guys are both looking for 23.5% ownership right now, right? Highest receivers. That's 8 and 79. It's expensive. But to get to Tyreek Hill at 92 and then Justin Jefferson at 96, like that $1,500 on this slate is so hard. So Tyreek's looking at 15% right now and Jefferson's at 10. Like you're getting double on the other guys just because of that $1,200 and a somewhat similar ceiling. And I think Devontae's good chalk if Garoppolo plays. I mentioned I already like that game. I'm not touching it really if he doesn't, but I'm curious how much he gets hit. And then if he gets hit, Diggs gets steamed up. Keenan Allen gets steamed up even more. People do find ways to squeeze into Hill. And, Chase, I think, is super sneaky, right? We finally saw Jamar Chase hit on Monday night. Burrow doesn't look right, but if they're going to force feed him targets, as they should, get the ball in the hands of your best player, plus Tennessee pass funnel, plus he's still under 8K. The dude's 7,800. I mean, give me Jamar Chase all day.
And this goes into what I was saying when I was evaluating the slate. And I can't disagree with Miles Sanders being a play too, especially if the rookie's coming back in. He checks it down to Sanders a ton. So you're getting pass game work, goal line work, a lot of carries. So I can't really disagree too much with that chalk. And then Burrow, he got through last game. And this weird new style where they're just getting it out of his hands quickly to Chase. And every time Higgins has a bad game like week 1, what happened the following week? 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Tennessee, they help you out so much. They stuff the run and you have to throw. So when you have a quarterback with a bad calf who's going to have to throw all the time, and you're going to be getting a bunch of completions to your players, he's another option to do single stacks, double stacks, whatever. And then I even thought, I understand the talk is that Derrick Henry's the worst player in the league now, but I think that's all kind of matchup based. He's had 2 very crusty matchups. Before that, he busted some long ones in those earlier 2 games. I can see him having a good game. There's too many goddamn options that can go off all over the slate. It's like playing Minesweeper when I was a kid. I didn't know what the rules were. I just started clicking on gray and I died within 5. That's exactly what could happen on this slate. Oh, I didn't know the
I'm
rules.
laughing because I've had the exact same experience, dude. I remember like my first computer, my dad's like first computer or something. I see this game and I was like clicking around, and I had the exact same,
Yeah, you just hope.
experience.
You hope you don't hit red. Not. You don't know what the flags are. You don't know what the numbers mean.
But it's
You're just like,
also
I'm gonna
this
fucking click
this
here.
tells you about like Windows 95 or whatever when we were playing this, because like it was like that in solitaire and we didn't have anything else to play. But like so I would just play it. Like I would just play it for a long time. I have no idea what the hell I was doing. Yeah, literally no clue, with no willingness to learn either. It's just like, oh, okay,
Uh,
just hope and pray.
no, you don't learn. No, I'm just gonna just smack these things and hope that I could somehow win this game by luckily not hitting one of the 15 bombs that are laying
It's
around these
You
spots.
know what, this slate is a good Minesweeper at 7 years old analogy. It really is. Burrow, I
Out
love.
of curiosity,
Derrick Henry
if
was.
everyone's taking the Chalkroach, what about their wide receiver? Because I'm like everyone's gotta love
I can't
Nakua.
believe Karen Williams is the Chalkroach now. It's amazing. That's a great nickname for him. Nakua is at 17% right now, and I think that's fine. You know, at 6,700, that's probably where he should be priced. I just wanted to say quickly on the sense, like I love the Bengals stacks this week. I'm curious where Burrow's coming in. Um,
Are
Burrow,
there
no one's
only
playing Burrow,
2 4 o'clock? Oh, you
dude. No
damn
one's
bastard!
no
You're
one's
on the
playing Burrow,
west.
man.
You're on the West Coast. I'm like, wait,
Oh
where are
yeah,
the
yeah. I'm on
4
the West
o'clock
Coast. Yeah,
games?
yeah, yeah. I'm on the West Coast. Three fourths, and no one's playing Burrow, dude. Like 2%. Oh man, sign me up. And I don't think he's himself. So, but yeah, Tennessee pass
He's
funnel.
not
Get the
himself,
dog.
but you
I
know
agree
what?
with that.
This is something nobody ever really talked about. Joe Burrow doesn't run. He doesn't run. And then guys like Kirk Cousins saying, well, they can't have an ultimate ceiling because they don't run. The max the freaking Burrow, a fully healthy Burrow is running for is 12 to 15 yards. Nobody ever answered for themselves when they said he's one of like the elite 5, but other players can't be because they're pocket quarterbacks. Well, what the
Yep,
hell is Joe
yep.
Burrow?
It's the Tom Brady thing. It's that this guy gets the 400-yard, 5 touchdown game so much more than everybody else, right? So he gets them 6 times a year, 5, 6 times a year, and Kirk Cousins gets them once, right, or whatever.
Okay,
And
that's fair.
that's the thing. And so if you're going to get 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in a game, it doesn't matter that you can't run. The problem is we're now going to be almost a quarter of the way through the season. We haven't seen it yet. So he's not paying off his ADP right now, you know?
The
So,
flip side to that is who's more due.
mm,
And I like that he
it's
got through
true.
that last game with the calf because I think psychologically, and also he had a couple deep shots.
And they got the
You know,
win. They got the win is huge at 0-2. They needed like from a they just squeaked it out. Like the Rams were tough. But they got the win.
and there
Yeah.
is no running in this one, so that's definitely a good one.
I like him. I like him quite a bit. The Henry thing, I'm having trouble getting there, but I will say this: if you want to, like, it's going to be super contrarian to go like Burrow double with a Henry bring back, and Henry's been a bring back in these types of things before because he's not your run of the mill between the tackles running backs. Because when the Titans push, it's on the back of their Henry, right? So it's a little bit different. Yeah, I don't mind that. Who else are you talking about there? Puka's going to be a little owned. I mean, Jalen Hurts is on this slate against Washington, and we just saw, the Bills did that team, and you can't ignore
One
that.
last thing I will say: if Deebo Samuel ends up not playing, if they just rest him for a game, the same way they rested Ayuk for a game, I think it's smart that they're doing that this year, making sure that they have everybody healthy as the
Yeah, I mean, they're
season
going to be
goes
like,
forward.
yeah, they're going to
I
be
think
like 12
another
and 4
what
at the
you
very
saw
least.
from George Kittle last week on that Thursday game, when one of those receivers are out, he becomes the clear number 2, and he's still extremely skillful in that department. And it's not like Arizona has been defending the tight ends well. Don't let last week's effort from Arizona blur what's all right. The Giants were able to run up a ton of points on them. So there will be plenty of points to go around in that game. Just don't forget about George just because he had a bad couple of weeks 1 and 2 there.
Yeah, and the best thing that can happen for these Cardinals environments is that Josh Dobbs has shown a level of competence at least to put up a couple points on the board, and then they sneak out the win last week. It becomes a trap game for all these teams, and they have a quarterback that's at least not terrible. So yeah, I mean, picking guys on the other side of that, I don't hate.
You
And
know what,
Kittle, I'm
Gary?
with
I
you. And
think I
Kittle's the
think the
kind of guy.
the Niners want to say that we've scored 30 points in every game this season because that's what they've done so
Yeah.
far. So maybe they'll just run it up regardless.
I like the Niners quite a bit. I mean, I don't think the Cardinals are doubling down on that type of thing. But Kittle's the kind of guy, and this is why he's always a good best ball pick. And it's the same type of thing for large field tournaments. Like, yes, there's going to be 2 point games in there, literally half the season, like 2 to 5 points. But you're getting those 32 point spike weeks that you only get out of certain tight ends. So yeah, sign me up for Kittle. I don't mind that at all. I think Ayuk would be fine. I think CMC would be fine. If you want to go Purdy, I guess you can, but it's a huge quarterback week. I'm probably not going there. So yeah.
All right,
What
there's a
else you got?
lot, ladies and gents.
Oh,
That's all I got to say. I mean, they're just
yeah.
the
Last
more you
thing,
look.
and
If
then
you
we'll
X
get
out Burrow
into
right there, if you X out Burrow right
yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just look
Mm-hmm.
everywhere you look on this, like you pray, hey man, give me
Everywhere
something I
you
could stay away
look.
from. Maybe New England, Dallas, but I got a weird feeling Dallas is actually going to play pretty well. Someone like Pollard's going to have a pretty big game or something.
Yeah, and like there's cheap guys down here, right? We talk about Russ, um, Stafford against the Colts, I think for sure, and that's a pivot to the Chalkroach if we went with the Rams pass game. And yeah, I mean, yeah, dude, if Dalton starts again, how do you ignore that? The guy threw 55 times last week, and Thielen, my God, uh, the Thielen Chalker mini stack, by the way, was the one to hit. And I think you kind of touched. Did you touch on that, or did you have that in one of your lineups?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was something.
yep,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
Anyway,
mean,
it's a fun slate because you know what, and this is why I'm not playing a lot because I can't focus on it. The people that put in the work to like really mess around with construction and like again like really play around with ownership and run the outcomes on different lineups. Those are going to be the ones that are successful this week because this isn't
it's
a throw
just
shit against the wall and like figure it out week. This is like a let's really dive into these environments and lineup construction week. So yeah.
seriously, like, I mean, you have Houston at Pittsburgh. Look at some of those receivers on Houston, and then
Dude,
that's
Houston's
such
great.
such a
Houston's been
great
great.
matchup. So what? I mean, Pickens can have 140 and 2 touchdowns in a game like this. There's just so
Yeah.
many players. Like I'm just looking to eliminate players. But as I look at these games, look at that Minnesota game. These Minnesota guys can all score a touchdown. Like, God damn it! Honestly, I'm gonna act like I'm in the mountains with you or in the cabins because I'm gonna lose a lot of money if I invest a lot of money. It's too much. It's too much. There's too much good shit. And watch this week's millionaire just be the most basic ass lineup you've ever seen in your life. Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs, and it's just the Chalkroach is gonna lead the way.
On the flip side of that, when there is a lot of options, there's always chalk on every slate. Right? I mentioned that 6K tier throughout every position looks like it's going to be chalk this week. When there's a lot of options, it also gives you a lot of pivots, right? So if you want to try to build lineups the way that you should be building lineups, you're going to have plenty of good pivots as well away from chalk. So it's an interesting lineup for tournament players as well. Slate for tournament players this week. I wish I could play it because it's the kind of slate that I would like to really dive in and make a full build on and run different outcomes on things, but yeah, I'm not able to this week. But I think that people will pay off. We'll see. We'll see.
We already had a nice sign that this is 1 week to kind of lay low, unless you're one of those max players. Joe Blow Public is in rehab for the week. He said he's sick once again, and he's going to be back next week with a lineup. I'm going to try to fix my men's warehouse pick of the week this time around by going with Josh Jacobs, a guy that Gary typically likes. I've been off him earlier in the year, but I saw enough. I saw a little aggression in the running. And I think he's going to follow that up with his first 100-yard and a touchdown game against the Chargers. One way or another,
Yeah,
I think
man.
he's going to get there this week. Hopefully Garoppolo plays. I want it to be a regular game, and we know how much McDaniel will commit to him. I mean, we saw it all last year. They got him on the franchise tag. They'll run this guy to the ground, maybe almost as much as Detroit ran Montgomery to the ground last year. But I'm hoping for 100 and a touchdown, possibly 2. You know what Madison could have done if he was a little more talented last week. I'm looking for something similar from the Raiders running back because he is on that franchise tag. He needs to show that he's good still if he wants to get that contract that will probably never come to him regardless. But Josh Jacobs is my Men's Warehouse pick of the week.
That's a good one, for sure. I think, even if it's Hoyer, you could actually make the argument it's even better, right? With the real check down stuff. But stacking the box, who knows? But it's a good one. I'm struggling this week because again, I mean, in fashion with the slate, I am struggling. Part of me wanted to really go to that Bears Broncos game, but the value for planting my flag on someone isn't necessarily there in that one.
Well, while you're thinking about it, I do
Yeah.
want to remind you, just when I haven't been calling it enough, but don't think I forgot that I've known since the early 2000s when it's a Devontae Smith or an AJ Brown week. You guys remember? Wait, well, who are they playing this week? Oh, a physical team, an outdoor team, potential grime. That's an AJ Brown week. But last week was this week's also going to be an AJ Brown week. Remember that. I know which one goes off between the two. Over on AJ Brown reception yards, get him in a lineup here and there. There's a little sniff of the week.
I'll go this direction. I've successfully flagged plenty T. Higgins so far this year, and I'm with you. I think T. Higgins also has a big week. I think the Bengals doubles are in play, but give me Jamar Chase. Again, coming off this week, I still think he's just falling through the cracks. Not that many people watched that double Monday night header or whatever it was that he went off on. Volume for sure. I think they know that in order for this offense to do anything, it's Chase. And the good thing is, even if Chase gets like 15%, which is fine for his ceiling, you know how you get contrarian? Play Joe Burrow. Pair him with Burrow. Don't make it a one-off play. Play the stack. So, yeah, give me Jamar Chase and kind of the Bengals offense in general. But that's where I'm going with my Men's Warehouse pick of the week.
Good stuff. And if I was you people, I would join the $3 20 max entry so you can sprinkle a bunch of stuff. The 20 max $1 entry. Just get all your favorite combos in there and watch one of them hit. Because like Gary this week, he's got to somehow come up with 3 tickets to get into this fight. And that's going to be a tough one. This is a really tough week to live on the poor streets in England, wherever the hell Charlie Bucket lived in that town. I don't know if they ever specified. It was just generic English town where people are poor. And what the hell was that thing? Like their laundry was done in like a bucket and with a wood spoon, and they just kind of tossed it around. Do you remember? Did you ever see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Yeah. Well, I've seen the original Willy Wonka for sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
But yeah, I don't remember the specifics of what that thing was. But yes, it was very weird. That whole thing was weird. They all shared a bed together. The 2 grandparents shared a bed, and they went like foot to head. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, why they gave Charlie his own room? That little shit. Are you kidding me? Give it to these grandparents or something. Yeah. What the hell? Actually, I actually like that. They just rolled all the old people out right into the front by the front door. You walk into
they were like right in the middle of the one little room.
and you see old people. Like I see dead people in The Sixth Sense. You walk in and there's a row of people in a bed, very old. That's an
that movie is so. What happens to those kids? So do those kids die in the factory? Is that what they're insinuating? The kids that disappear? Because I've read some dark stuff about this.
No, I think those Loompas, it's kind of like when you get eliminated in like a Nickelodeon game. On TV, it looks awful, like it's the end of the world. But, the temple guards got you. You don't get executed like this is old Aztecs over here. They take you to the bottom and say, look, I hope you enjoyed your everlasting gobstoppers. You didn't win the game. You ate. I mean, I would reprimand these people, you fat fucks. You put your hands right in the river.
I got the scoop.
I don't like the look of it. I mean, those are the creepiest.
I'll tell you this:
freaks.
I will not be seeing the Timothée Chalamet prequel. Does not look good to me. I'm not interested.
Come up.
You're
with
distressed,
shit, man. Well, it's just because that's why I watch. That's why I watch my shit horror movies, because I can't stand this never ending, like this Flash movie. My friend told me to watch it. He goes, no, but you can see all there's the Michael Keaton Batman, and there's the Val Kilmer, and there's all the Batman. I said, this is what it's come to. You've made so many Batmans. You've had to make a movie that somehow intermingles multiple Batmans, just trying to tie all the loose ends in your idiotic. Come up with some new shit. I got plenty of ideas, and we'll let you know some of those next week. On week 5 of Look Who's Chalking, do we have buys next week, please?
Done. I think they start next week. Yeah, they do.
All right, guys, winning big starts next week, unless the buys start in week 6, because I weirdly think they like condensed the buys now. I'm not 100% sure.
No,
anyway, we will be back with you guys next week. Appreciate you as always. Good luck to all you guys out there. I do think this is going to be a tough one, but don't let that dissuade you. How many times have we thought, I don't want to play this week, end up having your best week, and vice versa? So stick with it. We'll be back with you next week. Hopefully Joe Blow's ready to go. Didn't mean that to sound like an 8-mile rhyme. We'll be back with you next week. Take it easy.
Subscription is fucking iBook. Read it. On MVP magazine subscription as iBook. As on MVP magazine subscription as iBook. Fucking chalk.